TGIF, everyone. I'm certainly glad it's Friday after yesterday. Hi, Brock. How are you? I had an extra helping of humble pie yesterday. Happens. Hello, Shahab. Okay, so this was the tweet, that jettisoned U.S. dollar yen higher and S&Ps to new record highs. And I've been talking about this being an important level. A breakdown would occur under this level. But to me, right now, it looks like a stop hunt. So, we took out these lows, and anyone who had stops that was trading one, they're gone, and now the market's here. So on a weekly basis, it's still pretty negative week. But look at how you're starting to get, it still looks like to me some type of flagging formation, which then means that I know we could be close to some type of top here in the S&Ps. 31, we got to 3180. Just want to point out that on this high in the S&Ps, this is pretty glaring. Okay, so now we finally have daily divergence. We were having some shorter term time frame divergences. So I think we're close, even though this candle was rough. Okay, and the same thing happened in the yen on the tweet. So I was short coming into this candle that we had up here. Starting to get a little bit of a reaction here at a double top. Probably takes out this double top high at 109.70, maybe sometime next week. But now, too much noise. 110.20 or so was a target that I gave up on up here. And I have to say, this is the strangest bottom I've ever seen, where it just comes off a flat bottom, but that's the environment that we're in. And wow, huh? Euro pound, amazing. So the dollar break was forecasted, didn't surprise me. So that's happening. So between the two, the yen looked like it was going to break down last Friday going home. The dollar looked like it would. The dollar did, the yen did not. One thing that really hasn't hurt me all the way from last week, and most markets have advanced, but we barely made a new high in the crude. There's $60, still short. Still looking for the high in here. So yesterday was definitely a wild full moon day with what happened with cable, right? And euro was so tame comparatively. And even the Swiss, it's congesting here. I'm bearish, but I can't get short here. So lastly, the dollar doesn't look so good. Looks like we, could trade 96 or lower, but we'll see. It should not get back above these lows. All right. So if you're bearish a dollar, I don't think you want to see it get back above this low, this low, this low. You need continuation. We start trading back above, say, 97.10. Be careful with dollar shorts. That's all I have to say. 10-year notes, yeah. So with what the yen did, you're right. They spiked. I thought we were on our way down to new lows here. And I think we talked about it last week that there's still a chance we could go to 210 in the coming days. In fact, it's interesting. I saw an interview with Jeff Gunlich, and he said he didn't think the 10-year would get through 210. So, he's looking at the same chart. So perhaps there's another wave up towards this area, but this to me still doesn't look like a bottom. It looks corrective to me, and I still think there's one more wave to the downside for new historic lows. So I'm glad this week is over. It was a rough one for me, one of the roughest in a while. on one tweet. So probe and protect. And with that being said, what kind of night did the chat room have last night with the pound rallying 300 pips, Blake?
Well, it was pretty explosive. I think a lot of people did well. There were some people that tried to fade the cable, but man, the moves happened right at the which I didn't expect, by the way. They happened right at the polls closing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that just made the
I mean, was there time? Was there time from when the move started it to really even say you reacted right away?
Yeah.
How much would you have paid up to get long cable?
Well, you're probably going to pay up about 100 pips. So
okay.
Yeah, and frankly, I was watching when the polls closed, but I was actually, I was focused more on the euro yen because I had that long. So
trade.
Yeah, it was good. Let me go over the pound really quick. But you can see the cable.
Yeah.
Right here, that spike.
Yeah.
And I'll actually put it on a 1 minute chart so you can see. It was a pretty massive move. It's going to take
all in a minute.
Yeah, I mean it was like
boom. Because I just noticed EG. I was like looking at EG.
Yeah. I mean, we spiked up from we were at 3170 to 3350 like quickly, and then continued to march higher after that. I mean, it happened all very quickly because hold on real quick.
Sure.
I received a notice that Chinese officials will hold a press briefing Friday night, Beijing time. Our reporters are already at the scene. But for the briefing is being delayed. Sources told Global Times that the briefing is regarding the U.S.-China trade talks. So there is going to be a Chinese announcement on the trade deal sometime this evening. So
after the markets close. I wonder if they're going to push back. No, I mean, it was signed, right?
No, just imagine roughly, and don't quote me because it's like I can't remember. I never remember if it's 12 or 13 hours in Beijing. That's different.
Okay.
But it's about 12 hours different from where we're at. So, like, imagine it's 8 o'clock. It's probably going to be here in the next, I would say, 2 hours or so, I guess. The reporter's already on the scene, so that means probably within the next hour or two there's going to be some sort of formal announcement based on the China trade talks. I have to point out a few things. First and foremost, so let's we can talk about the pound, but the pound, once the move happened, there was really nothing to do. I mean, you were either stopped out if you were short the cable in any way, shape, or form, or you did really well, and then it just drifted the rest of the night. I actually ended up watching a couple Netflix shows with my sons. By the way, if you've never seen Magic for Humans, it's hilarious. It's very funny. I've been a Netflix subscriber since I think 97. So I mean, I always like to say I'm probably one of the first originals, when it was only DVDs. But anyway, great. It was a great show. But that's how boring it was after the fact. Because if you look at what happened the hours following, the polls right here, it was that. I mean, it was there was nothing really to do, and the euro spiked up. And the euro just kind of drifted around. The euro was a little bit more under pressure because the euro pound was falling. So it kept some downside pressure on the euro. I did take the euro yen off today already because we were at 122.60, 4 hour relative strength. You'll see it was very, let me pull it up really quick. It's very overbought. You'll see it here in a second when the RSI pops up. It was extremely overbought. And
might have even reached the objective of the triangle.
Not yet. It comes in at 123, but there's a couple things that made me nervous today, and futures have come down a little bit, which is worth noting. that we're seeing a little bit of pressure in the futures. But there's a couple things that have stuck out, and it was one of the reasons why I'm like, I'm going to just take the euro yen off here. First and foremost is gold. Gold, I'm sitting here looking at it this morning. I'm like thinking, well, why is gold higher? Gold should actually be lower. I mean, if with all this positive news, gold should be higher, right? Or excuse me, lower. I mean, I was thinking, well, with gold, we should be trading down well below this 1460 level. We should be really down here somewhere. And I tweeted about it. I'm like, what's gold doing up here? And then also, you got the US dollar CNH, which let me pull it up really quick. The US dollar CNH is stronger. Now it's down. This is a 4-hour chart, so let me go over to an hourly. It's down. It just came off this morning, and now because we're going to get this China trade announcement, like a formal announcement, which everybody's going to assume that China's going to say, okay, we agree. That's I think the running assumption right now. But why had the US dollar CNH been climbing all night? That was a little concerning to me, because the US dollar CNH should just keep dropping if things were, all good. Now that we're getting some sort of official Chinese word, because we hadn't had any, mum's been the word from China up until now. But now it looks like China is going to have a response. So, and everybody just assumes that it's going to be like, okay, phase 1 deal's done. Let's move along. Another thing that is really surprising is the 10-year, and I actually updated our 10-year chart just a little while ago. Now, this is delayed. I don't have a futures feed for here. This is Bloomberg. I actually look at the yields, the actual yields, but you can see the 10-year yield's lower. It's not much different than where we're at. But one of the things that is concerning to me is why are bond yields down? The 10-year should have dropped. We should have cleared this 128 level, and we noted it. Let me go over to the 10-year really quick on ForexAnalytix. Just get to it. Okay, so this was updated 21 minutes ago, so you can see it. I was already highlighting that. But yesterday's analysis, we have invalidated the inverted head and shoulder pattern because it was setting up, the inverted head and shoulder pattern, but it never broke a neckline. And now have broken the triangle and trend line lower. So you can see the triangle and trend line broke lower. A move below the 128 level looks likely. Now, this morning, I updated this, just basic technical analysis, obviously not all the other analysis, because this is the one that I focus on predominantly. It says we have to note that as of now, the 10-year is holding the key 128 level, as noted yesterday. Since this is big support for bonds, as yields are lower today after all the overnight events. This is important since all the positive news overnight with the UK-China trade news. The bond market should be lower. It's not, so be careful with long risk trades. That was, before the stock market just did a little ditty, just if you're talking about basically 30 minutes ago, and I was telling people in the chat room, right after I sent out that chart, the S&Ps, sold off, but now you can see they're bouncing back. But the fact of the matter is, there are risks in this market, because I'm going to say it again. Why have we not seen some of these other asset classes really move in the direction that they should be moving? Now, when you have stocks that are moving higher, you should have, in this case, gold moving lower. You should have bonds moving lower. And then you should also have the US dollar CNH moving lower. None of which that are happening right now. Does that mean that they won't move following a China, agreement to the phase 1 deal? Actually, I strongly believe that if China comes out and says we will accept the Trump administration's trade terms, I think S&Ps will spike. I think that dollar yen will, in this case, spike. I believe that gold will move lower, right? And or that's silver. Sorry, I meant to do that for gold. It's Friday. Bear with me. Gold will move lower, and then you'll have the U.S. dollar CNH will continue lower, and then you'll have. Oh wait, hold on. Based on just step forward, but how to find whatever. Sorry, I was just reading some little Chinese propaganda. Nothing big. And then we would see the bond market. In this case, the bond market should move lower as well. So again, that's all predicated on China. China. So we have to see what China says here, and that's going to really define, what we're going to see moving into the rest of today. Now, one other. Oh, and then here's another one: U.S. dollar, Mexican peso. Why? I'm sitting here scratching my head. Why hasn't the U.S. dollar Mexican peso broken below 19? We probed below it a couple of times overnight, but why haven't we really broke down in the U.S. dollar Mexican peso? Again, these are all things that'll probably change after we get this press briefing from China. Once we get this press,
I'm not so sure, Blake. But perhaps it's because the market has already sniffed that whatever we get is going to be extremely underwhelming. I think
we already know what the terms are, and we already know they're underwhelming. But
yeah.
Again, this is where you have to have China buy-in. If you have China buy-in, there will be at least more move up in risk appetite. There will be.
Yeah, mostly from algos or whatever. Yeah, I agree. I mean, we could have a spike. Yes.
Yeah, but is it sustainable? I don't know. The cat's out of the bag. We all know what we're expecting, and I actually, after hearing the China, or the U.S. terms of trade, from overnight, because that came out right around the Brexit stuff too. I was thinking, okay, S&P's broke new highs. We went from 3160 to, and by the way, just so if you guys are not aware, we're at the 161% extension of the last, the summer move lower. We're at the 161% extension. That should be noted technically, but and we have divergent relative strength as we're hitting highs. Also should be noted. Doesn't mean it's going to do anything. I'm just saying that we should be aware that there are technical reasons why you have to be a little careful up here. But I thought to myself last night after, I'm like, okay, UK, we got the Brexit we want, or we got the leader that we want. And for all intents and purposes, for the continued fuel of risk appetite. Everybody wanted a majority from Boris Johnson. You got it. Brexit's going to happen. We have an EU agreement, not a trade agreement, but we have an EU Brexit agreement that has been already agreed to. We're going to be able to move forward in the UK, and the UK can finally sever its ties from the EU. There's going to be a lot of trade negotiations over the next several years for the EU and UK, but that's a different story. We're just going to be able to move on. Thank God. Now, last night, the US, said, here's our China deal. Everybody's like, woohoo, phase one, it's going to get done. China's definitely going to agree to it. Why? Because China needs it more than us. That's what Donald Trump says. That's what we've been told. So therefore, we got this spike up in risk. S&Ps, see a secondary
So the market
move.
got everything it wanted, right, Blake?
It
That's the
did,
point,
but
yeah.
the point I'm trying to say here is why aren't we trading at 3,200 in the S&P? Maybe because Steve is right. It's all factored in.
Maybe
But
it's a 1.618.
that is it. That's the case. Now, does that warrant you to be outright bearish? No, but is it worth noting that we are 15 handles higher after all said and done, after these great groundbreaking events that we've all been waiting for months and months and years and years and years?
You've also been saying for months that you were looking for a spike into a trade deal. Even though it's marginal, whatever it is, it's still a deal. And the market did exactly what you thought it would on that announcement. Then you were looking to fade, or be looking to fade after that event. So, the scenario you painted is now a picture hanging on the wall.
It is. And if you want to know how I'm reacting here, well, you probably have to be in the ForexAnalytix chat room, because everybody in there knows exactly what I'm doing.
Good one, man.
Hey, I'm just saying that, look, this is a free webinar. I try to give you as much information as possible. Like,
I'll give away the store, bro.
Here's a couple looks. You can, but I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm kind of concerned on what I'm seeing here. Does that mean that that you should be just full board bullish or bearish at this point? I don't know. There's a lot of question marks right now. I'm looking around going, scratching my head. But what's going to be really interesting is to hear what China, quote unquote, officially has to say in the coming hours. That's going to be really important. What does China really say about all of this?
I heard them say this, like, chop suey.
Hey, I'm half Chinese.
I know.
And that's borderline offensive to me.
All right.
But if you called me Oriental, like a rug, that'd be even more offensive.
Oh God.
So
you lie like a rug.
I'm going to tell you right now, that's the least offensive thing to me in the world.
All right.
One of the things about being, for those of you that don't know, I was a Marine infantryman in the United States Marine Corps for 4 years, from 1990 to 1994. Back then, political correctness was beyond, like, there was none. So, no.
If only that was the case today as well. Yeah.
No, on the back of my boonie cap, my jungle cap that I'd wear, the ones that have the brim that goes all the way around. And, when I do jungle operations in Guam, we used to do a lot of night patrols, and, anyway, I'd spend like 4 or 5 days at a time in the jungle. Yeah. And, on the back of my hat, we called it a cover, but on the back of my hat, one of my squad members wrote with a Sharpie on the back of my hat. This is how political correct we weren't. Chink on the back. And you know what? I wore it with pride. So it is what it is.
Funny.
It's funny. Nowadays, we couldn't get away with anything like that, nor would we all joked about it at the time. And, because we all called each other names, and it didn't really matter.
On my trading jacket at the Merc, my badge was Hebe.
Yeah, well, the thing is you're all one color, as far as they go. But anyway, all right, guys. Enough about that. I have Stelios and Steve. I know Stelios has very limited time this morning. We do have, believe it or not, we have data today. We have some retail sales out of the U.S. That are coming up. So that's something that we should all, I guess, pay attention to. I think it's going to be very overshadowed. No one's going to care unless you see the consumer actually, completely being turned over here, but I doubt it's going to move the market. Everybody's focused, so fixated on UK and China that this is not going to matter. But Stelios is here for a few minutes before he has to leave. Steve's here, so I want to let these guys talk a little bit. Steve, Stelios, what are your take on what happened overnight?
Hello, good morning.
Hey,
Stel.
Blaker.
Hey.
So, well, can I begin?
Absolutely, Stelio.
So let's first talk about the UK. So we got the majority. I thought it was going to be a slim majority. It was actually a pretty comprehensive one, 39 seats. And it's common understanding that if a party has, if the Conservatives had more than, say, 20, 25, 30 in terms of a majority, then they can pass anything they want, pretty much, because, you know, there are parts of the party which are, you know, members of the party, MPs who are a bit more, you know, right-wing, others which are a bit more left-wing, others that dissent on certain things. Well, now it looks like with 39 over, it looks like they can pass anything. So in my opinion, having this majority now, they don't need the DUP, they don't need anybody, and they can bring back the agreement that they brought before the elections, and it will get passed.
Yep.
And that will be that. So what's the next step? That's a good question, because this is far from over.
Wait. Won't economic data start to matter now?
Yes, it will start a little bit more to matter, because now we bought a couple of years, right? It's going to be a transition, while all the details are being, you know, ironed out. But still, they have so much work to do, right? All these, you know, they have to decide on trade, on all sorts of stuff, like you correctly said, Blake. So I agree 100%. Economic data is now going to start to matter. Also, I think economic data is going to start to improve because, like you've said so many times before, Blake, there's a lot of pent-up energy. People are waiting or have been waiting, not investing, trying to see what's going to happen. We still don't have any clarity yet, but at least we know which way we're going. So that, for me, the removal of this uncertainty is a big thing. And we've said in the past, for the pound to really start, for us to say that the pound is now overdone, it's going to take a while. So I think this ship has started turning. There will be pullbacks, but I firmly believe the way for the pound is still higher. So does my dog, apparently. Oh, sorry, hold on a second.
Mike, back to your cage.
Yeah, I don't know, something excited them. I'm going to another room. Maybe they were pro Corbyn. I don't know. So that's my view.
They're definitely pro Corbyn. They've got everything in their life for free from somebody else. So,
Yeah. so that remains my view. Obviously, it can change, but at the moment, I don't see something that's gonna change it. And you know, I still like in the long term, I think the pound still has some way to go. I'm not saying I'm not going to be bearish a pound. I will eventually, but for now, I think that's the direction for me. And obviously, we still have to wait and see how things progress now. You know, because like I said before, there's so many things they have to decide upon with the EU that it's going to take you know, it's going to take a long time. So that's my view on the UK.
All right, very good. And with that being said, Steve, I don't even want to hear what you have to say. Just kidding. I can stick around for the news. We might as well. I'm not. You know, it's not like it's something that I'm going to react on today. So let's take a look at the news. And Steve, what are your thoughts about what happened over the weekend? You got 1 minute, less than a minute. Never mind. Actually, let's talk about it afterwards. How about that?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Actually, let me answer one quick question. Our friend Gautam said it's a long time before we see better data in the UK. I agree. I'm not saying we're going to see stellar data. I'm not going to, you know, economic data, it takes a while for it to start turning, but I just think the trend is going to be a little bit higher going forward. That's what I'm saying. I don't think we're going to see, you know, PMIs at 60.
By the way, this is your data flash that you get with this is Bloomberg, and this is data flash that you get with ForexAnalytix with your subscription. So you can see here's you can just see how fast the data flash is to Bloomberg. You know, remember, this is included with, this is $2,800. This is included with ForexAnalytix. you guys can see how valuable this piece of it is. Wow. Oh, this is just boom, boom, boom.
No,
Oh, that's weak, isn't
much,
it?
much weaker than expected.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay.
All right.
All right. I'm out of here. Just kidding. I actually, I'm going to go say good morning to my family. And Steve, I'm sure everybody wants to hear your thoughts on what had happened overnight. So I'm going to pass it over to you guys. Have a wonderful weekend. I'm going to have a lot to say about on the week ahead video, I'm sure. So you guys enjoy.
Indeed,
Enjoy,
that's going to
Blake.
be a
Have a
long
great
one.
weekend, buddy.
All right. Thanks, guys.
TGIF.
TGIF.
Hey, Steve, how are you, buddy?
Hey, coach. I'm good. How have you been?
Okay.
Cool. How are your cats?
Actually, one of them is as active as Mike is. I have a Leaky, trying to grab my microphone all the time today. For some reason, she just doesn't go away. I don't know what she wants exactly.
She thinks she can do a better job than you.
She needs attention.
He wants a mic, Steve. I hear her.
Actually, she's very vocal as a cat. I mean, she meows all the time. Leaky?
You know, I had a dog that later on, it was a Cocker Spaniel, Jazz, and when she was an old lady, I'd be watching TV in the living room and she'd come and start barking at me until I went to bed. She wanted me to go into the bedroom and go to
That's
sleep.
so sweet.
They start ordering you. It was like I wasn't married at the time. It's like she was my wife, you know. She'd come and not that, you know. Anyway, but they can run your life.
One of my cats is like that. The other one, I found him when he was 7 days old. His mother abandoned him or whatever, so I had to raise him, like bottle feeding him, whatever. So now he thinks I'm his mommy.
Yeah.
So he's sleeping at my office, but whenever I finish the day and I want to go to bed, he immediately comes behind me and just tuckles in with me and sleeps in my. Nice. He crawls in my belly because I sleep on the side, so he sleeps like that.
It's like you have a cat pillow for your.
And it's especially in winter time, it's very nice because they're very warm. As you know, the regular temperature is way above human.
Look what Forex Gal said. You knew there was going to be something like that coming out. All right, so Steve, wild day, still wild day. How now, brown cow? What are you thinking here?
So it made sense that we had all the movement happening immediately because, as I wrote in the chat room when we got the data, the exit poll was so definitive that it was outside the margin of error. So it made sense. And if you remember, I mentioned that yesterday in the webinar as well, that there is a chance that we're going to get an immediate reaction, and that is if the exit poll data are definitive. And as it seems they were. So, the market had no reason to wait for actual data because the exit poll, I mean, even if it was at the borders of the margin of error, statistical error, it would still be an overwhelming majority for the Tories. So, that's what we got, and the market responded immediately. The interesting thing is that we got, obviously, the cable responding initially, but soon after, the rest of the currencies started also moving higher against the dollar. So it began with the pound, but it spilled over across the board. So we had the Euro USD, as you see here, actually break through the confluence of the 200 daily moving average and this wedges descending trend line. We had the Aussie against the US dollar, which we were talking about that breaking above the channel and above the 200 daily moving average, actually even poked its nose above the 61.8 and the previous high. We had the Kiwi climbing even further. Speaking of the Kiwi, It has taken only a few days, but we're now very, very close to actually fulfilling the inverted head and shoulders formation target. I mean, we're like, what is it, 30 pips away. So just 30 pips away from that inverted head and shoulders formation target. We had the USD SEC breaking further lower, and most importantly, no, actually, it's not most importantly. It was important for me because I had an order that got triggered. We got the USD NOK breaking through the neckline of this head and shoulders formation. It triggered me short, as I wrote in the chat room. I had an order at 9:068, and it triggered me short, activated this head and shoulders formation. It was looking like it might have not played out because we were losing symmetry, but we had these 3 consecutive days in a row, down days in a row, and there you go. Now we broke through it. And if you go down to a 4-hour chart, you're going to see that the target, there it is, you're going to see that the target is still somewhat lower, right? This is the target of this head and shoulders formation. You can see it more clearly, actually. It looks better on a 4-hour chart, this head and shoulders formation. I mean, it looks more symmetrical on the 4-hour chart because you have a little bit of a more complex head here, and then the 2 shoulders have more or less symmetry, right? That's why I held my order, actually, to be short, because on the 4-hour chart, it still looked good. And obviously, needless to say that, the DXY made the move yesterday, and let's see what it's going to do now. It broke through this ascending channel. First of all, it broke through the range, right? Then it broke through this ascending channel, and now we're retesting the channel. 97.10 is a little bit higher. 97.10 is the previous support of this range. So I think that as long as we stay below 97.10, the risks are tilted to the downside for the DXY. So it all began due to the UK elections and just by pound moving, but everything else followed, and that was actually quite interesting. And I want to see how we're going to close the week today, because today we're going to close both the day and the week. And if actually, all these moves that we've seen against the dollar prove to be sustained. So let's say if the Euro USD closes above that confluence, if the Aussie USD closes above that confluence of resistances, if the DXY closes below 97.10, etc., I think there's going to be a lot of thinking during the weekend from investors, and there is a good chance that we're going to see follow through in the dollar weakness in the upcoming week. So I like the fact that I currently have short dollar exposure. By the way, my other position, unfortunately, I had kept half of my euro pound short because half of it got limited out on my initial target, which was at 84 something, I don't remember now. So that that closed. And yesterday, unfortunately, I had actually trailed my stop loss in my profit for the rest of the half of the position, actually here in this horizontal support resistance area. So that spike that we had higher in the euro pound stopped me out again in the same area, 84.80, whatever it was that I had my initial target for the first half. And then it kept moving lower, which is unfortunate because my second target was at 83, so I would have actually made it to my second target. But it is what it is. I mean, both positions, both half of the positions made the profit, so I shouldn't be complaining about it. So now I have my USD NOK short position. As I said, I do like that formation. If you have a look at other USD pairs, USD SEC, you remember this was one of the first one that moved, and I said that For me, that's quite important because frequently it's going to show you the direction. Not only it has now broken below this ascending wedge, but it has also triggered that head and shoulders formation, and it keeps going, lower. We still have some way to go for the target, which is down at 910. But it's definitely very oversold in the short term. There's no question about it. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some kind of a, consolidation or even a rebound to retest that resistance at some point. But I do like this position as well. And
Great trade, Steve.
Thank you. And if we do get a rebound to 947, I think it's going to be a good opportunity for people to try to be on the short side of the USD SEK as well. So bottom line, I started some time ago tilting bearish the dollar, and I'm not talking about my long-term thesis, because you know that my long-term thesis is short the dollar, but I'm not trading my long-term thesis. I'm trading what the chart is telling me. So now I have started turning bearish the dollar for the now and for the here and now. And for the time being, I have exposure with the USD NOK, but I will gladly build more positions against the dollar. And one of them I'm seriously considering is the Aussie, because the Aussie, if that's the case, it's just at the beginning of this move, right? It has been lagging the Kiwi. I want to see how we're going to close today, because for me it's important. I mean, there is still a chance, let's say, that this is going to prove to be like a bearish candle and we're going to just get rejected once again from the previous high, the 61.8. So for me, it's important to see how we're going to close the week, and I'm going to seriously consider being long the Aussie against the dollar if we actually close on a positive note, the day and the week. Let me go through some of your questions. Do you think currencies drive T notes normally or vice versa? Okay. Yes, that is actually quite a good question, Barak. First of all, those normally go in tandem. Okay. Now, when I say normally, I say normally because we know that the market forces that, theoretically speaking, are driving currencies and are also driving rates are supposed to be the free market movements. And we have nothing that resembles free market moves, right? We have a Fed that is actually trying to follow the bond market. So we have a Fed that its policy is based on sustaining the financial bubble and following what the market is pricing in. So not leading the market, but actually trailing the market. We know that the short-term yields are 100% manipulated because the biggest bidder there are the central banks. And this definitely affects somewhat currencies. Now, under normal circumstances, those would move very closely to each other and concurrently. They would be moving together. But nowadays, you see divergences due to all the factors that I mentioned, like manipulation and you name it. So it's one thing economic theory, and the second thing of what we currently have now, because what we currently have now is completely outside the boundaries of any economic theory. It's actually, in my opinion, a very bad, and in retrospect, everybody's going to agree in the future, a very failed experiment with monetary policy. Greetings to all from Ingmar. Long time ago, we see the data. There is still a lot of fog. Yep, dollar yen sell. Now, having to do with selling the USD against the yen, I'll tell you one thing here. If you want to do it, yes, this is exactly where you want to do it, right? You can see why. Because we are once again testing resistance, testing the inverted head and shoulders formation neckline. So you like it to the short side, this is where you sell it. And you have a very, very nice risk reward ratio. And keep in mind that this is also if you want to forget everything about the inverted head and shoulders formation and you just want to isolate in the shorter term, you can still see this as a range, right? It's a range between 107.80 and 109.70. Okay, so it's like less than a 200 pip range. So even if you want to see it as a range, yes, you can sell the top of the range. Let's say use a 30, 50 pip stop loss and look for a move towards the bottom of the range once again. But if we do break and close above this neckline, all bets are off. I think it would be quite dangerous being in the opposite side. Okay, so as a short-term trade, it looks very appealing, and it might actually work, especially if we see risk souring. Blake already mentioned that, okay, we got all we wanted. I mean, we got more or less confirmation that some kind of a phase one deal is coming. We got a clean result from the UK elections, which will give the ability to the government to go through with these plans having to do with Brexit. And yet the markets have failed to really push higher. What if that's it? What if, we got everything we wanted and we ran out of fuel? Obviously, that is also going to take USD yen lower as well. I mean, if the markets fail from here, it's very, very hard that the USD yen, I mean, it's not as correlated as it used to be, but it's not that very easy that the S&P is going to be tanking lower and at the same time the USD yen is going to be moving higher. I mean, this is something extremely unlikely to happen. Now, having said that, so far, despite the underwhelming reaction, we don't have any bearish signal yet. So the only thing to worry about is the underwhelming reaction. We have had a breakout from this little corrective channel in the S&P. If you have a look at the DAX is attempting to make the same kind of move as we speak. I mean, it had its equivalent corrective formation lower, which it is attempting to break through as we speak. The same thing applies with the trendline resistance in the RSI, as you see, and that frequently happens. I mean, frequently you will see a corrective formation break above both in price and in RSI, right? No technical sign yet that we're going to get a reversal, but it is Friday. It is the end of the week. It's going to be a very interesting sign if we have a big black candle to finish the day and the week, right? But I wouldn't be jumping the gun. I would first want to see something like that manifesting, and then we can start talking about bearish stock scenarios for the upcoming week. So that's what I think about it. But as I said before, having to do with being short USD yen from a risk reward perspective and from a technical perspective, it is a very appealing trade, right? So I don't blame you. Glenn, I did mention the USD NOK. It broke through the head and shoulders formation, so now it's targeting like 880 something. For me, it's clear that the S&P 500 has topped or is very close to topping on this deal. What confirmation would you look for to support my view? Oh, okay, I hadn't seen your question, but I just answered. I mean, I first want to see a big black candle, something that is going to indicate a short-term reversal, because don't forget that even the biggest reversal, even the top of a multi-year uptrend, also will begin with, a single candlestick, right? Is that enough to indicate, of course, the top of a bull market? No, it isn't. But even the top of a bull market is going to begin by single candlestick, right? A big candlestick, something that is going to make the market worry, something that's going to make the people that are along the market, rethink about it and start closing their positions, and then that might trigger a cascading event. Okay, so I can't turn bearish on an up day, right? On all-time highs. So although I do embrace the idea that now that everything is priced in, there is a good chance that the market might reverse, I also want to see some technical evidence. I mean, at least, some initial technical evidence. Gregorio says, ciao, Steve. Ciao. I'm assuming, Siciliano. Yes, so you are Italian. Hello, my friend. I love Italy, by the way. And I'm a big fan of the Italian football team. So what is my point of view on the Aussie against the Kiwi? Okay, I mentioned that the day before yesterday. I found it very, very interesting that we got that very nice reversal exactly at the 78.6% fib here. And just after falsely breaking below this channel, we had a continuation yesterday, but so far the candlestick today seems to be quite bearish. So, we're threatening with like a bearish reversal to what was a bullish reversal. Having said that, I still think that the risk reward favors after that reversal, because it was a very big white outside white candle, also a key reversal. This is the definition of a key reversal. We got a new low in a prolonged move lower, and we actually closed higher than the previous day. In all actuality, we closed higher than the previous 3 days. So that was a very strong reversal candlestick. So I still think that the risk reward does favor long positions against the low we got 2 days ago. Okay, so I would be looking for at least one more leg higher towards 1053 at the very least. That is my point of view, having to do with the Aussie against the Kiwi. And that would also bode well with the fact that the Kiwi has almost made it to the inverted head and shoulders formation, while the Aussie might just beginning its own move after a breakout. Okay, of course, as I said, I want to see how we're going to close the day and the week to confirm all that, right? Because a single daily close yesterday, especially with all the volatility that we got overnight, isn't enough. I mean, you can easily invalidate a single candlestick, especially when you have so many events happening. But that's my view of having to do with the Aussie against the Kiwi. I still think that the risk reward does favor at least a little bit further of upside. Okay, now questions about gold and silver. Speaking about the metals, palladium remains unstoppable. It might end up being the first metal that makes it to the $2,000 barrier. We've now fulfilled the cup and handle formation, so that's done. The daily RSI rebounded without even taking a breather from 40 to 83 that it's currently at. So, there's no question about it. It's very, very overbought. So, you want to be buying this, you need to wait for some type of a pullback, because, there is no risk reward here. I mean, at the very least, to retest that previous high that we got at 1,826 before looking for more upside. Okay, now, having to do with gold and silver, as Blake mentioned, they're both holding fine. So far today, silver has posted an inside spinning top, gold a spinning top as well. We're holding decently, but I remind you that for me, the biggest indication of a breakout is going to be gold breaking through 1485. I think that would indicate that another leg higher has begun. Now, what also looks positive for the metals is the fact that the gold-silver ratio might be rolling over. Of course, you know, in order for me to feel confident about that, because we might see another push higher first, I would want to see this trend line break to the downside, okay? But if we also see this trend line in the gold-silver ratio break to the downside, then I'm going to be confident that, first of all, I think that at the same time, we're going to be seeing gold breaking through 1485. Second of all, then I'm going to be confident that another leg higher has begun in the metals, which I think is going to be a very decent one. As I've said, my initial target for gold, once we break through 1485, is the long-term 61.8% fib, which comes at 1586. So it's $100 higher, right? So it's quite a nice distance to cover, and quite a lot of money can be made, you know, between here and there. Platinum, on the other hand, still hasn't posted a higher high here, toying around with that long-term trend line. But, you know, it looks to me inevitable that the metals sooner rather than later are going to continue higher. I mean, those three precious metals, gold, silver, and platinum. Now, since we're in the metal complex, let me also say here that copper is getting closer and closer to my target at 285. I would be a little bit careful up there. We're already overbought in the on the daily chart. You can see that the daily RSI is above 73 as we speak. So, you know, it might need to take a breather first. But I think that, you know, we're going to see 285, and, you know, we see what happens after that. Of course, the vast majority of those that we just covered, the Aussie, the Kiwi, copper, the metals, can really get moving even today. Depends on what we end up hearing from the Chinese, right? So, I mean, might prove to be a very volatile day to come. You know, depends on what we get. Let me see if I left any questions. China has so much possessions around the world. You can be sure that China does not need the US. They're just playing the submissive game with us while they're planting the seeds. I don't even think they're playing the submissive game. I agree with everything you said, Vivian, but I don't even think that they're playing submissive. Quite the opposite, actually. I think they've started clearly showing that they want to openly challenge the you know, the position of the US as the leading force of the planet. Okay, FTSE buys. Oh yeah. So that's a good question, actually, because we had obviously the pound shooting higher. So, you know, usually, of course, that is like something that would act as a headwind to the FTSE. Of course, that was not the case today, because the UK election result was both positive for stocks and for the currency, right? Because in general, having a strong government is always positive for an economy, because, you know, things have a higher chance of getting done than not. Now, having said that, pay attention to this. FTSE has shot higher and is currently testing once again this confluence of resistances at 7,450. So, you know, if for some reason you like it to the short side, this is where you short it. But keep in mind that if we do break above this confluence of resistances, I mean, it has already proved its importance. It has acted multiple times as a resistance, not only in the recent past, but it has acted as support in the past, as resistance again, you name it. I think then the FTSE should be challenging rather soon that previous high. So FTSE currently testing key area, and this is the place where it has to make a decision. If it breaks through it, I think there's going to be follow through. Okay, so I don't think you should be on the short side if you see a daily close above this confluence of resistances, Glenn. Okay, now I think I covered all the questions. Coach, do we have an interview today?
Yes, I tell you, I've been a little bit in a fog. I was going to bring Adam Button in today, but I have Darius Dale of Hedgeye booked today. So he's here with us. You've probably heard of Hedgeye, Keith McCullough. Darius does, he's involved in the macro strategy with McCullough, with Keith. So he's here.
Okay, very nice. Give me just a second because I noticed there was a question I hadn't answered. The question was what's happening with USD CAD? The answer is nothing. You remember we were talking about this range for quite some time now.
Yeah.
We have this slightly ascending channel, and we're currently exactly in the middle of it, testing actually a soft support. So it has remained, in essence, without a trend since the beginning of July. So in my opinion, Lorena, unless we break above 133.50 or we break below 130, I think that anything in between is noise. So I wouldn't get involved with it if I was you.
I would say holding up pretty well with the background of a weak dollar.
Yes, I agree, Coach, but still just noise here, right?
Okay.
Very noisy.
Yeah. All right. I'll put my earplugs in next time I trade the loonie. All right. So anyway, Steve, have a great weekend. Great job again this week. And Darius, thank you.
Jeremy Corbyn says the new Labour Party leader will be chosen early. Of course, he quits. I mean, after such a defeat, I mean, there was no alternative, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, Coach.
Well,
enjoy the
interview.
Maybe
I'm going to hire him to draw trend lines for me. I'm going to need a job. So.
I'm pretty sure that he couldn't even do that properly.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Have a great weekend.
Enjoy the interview. Everybody have a lovely weekend. And as I said, this might prove to be an interesting week. Depends on how we close. Exactly. Depends on how we close. It might actually finally open the door for some healthy volatility.
Okay. From your lips to who's
Indeed.
All right, Steve. Darius, I'm unmuting you. Welcome to Face. Really a pleasure to meet you. And you'll see a green share box if you want to share your screen, Darius. Waiting to hear you. You're unmuted. You'll figure this out. You're a Yale Bulldog. You could definitely master Zoom.
He's unmuted. Just make sure next to there is a Zoom panel with several buttons. One of them is the mute button. Exactly on the right of it, there is an arrow. If you click on it, it has all the audio settings. So make sure that the right microphone has been chosen there. The right audio source in general. And once you do that, it should work just fine.
Can you hear us?
Or yeah, just type if you can hear us, actually.
Okay.
Do you have any other means of communication with him, Dale?
Yeah, I have a phone number.
Okay. Why don't you call him and ask him if he can hear us and tell him how he can choose his audio source, etc. I can. Okay. If there is any more questions, I can cover until he figures that out.
Can you find the audio source for your microphone?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Oh yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, good. I'm hanging
I can't hear them.
Live TV. All right, live TV. Anyway, Keith, welcome to Face.
I'm not sure he can hear us, he said. So
Oh.
call him back, coach, call him back, tell
Oh.
him that we can hear him, and he just has to choose the right speaker source from the same button, okay? And we'll be just fine.
Same button
Yeah, same button next to the mute, the
next
little
to
arrow.
the mute for
Yeah,
your so we could hear your microphone.
yeah, but he can hear us, so you have to call him to tell him.
I'm on the phone with him.
Ah, okay, okay, yeah.
Darius? Hello.
So we can definitely hear him. If he chooses the correct speakers, he should be able to hear us as well.
Yeah, can you hear us?
I can't hear you guys talking through Zoom. I cannot.
You cannot.
Oh,
There's
okay.
okay.
Just tell him how to choose the speakers.
You have to choose the speakers. I don't know. I've never run into this before.
No, my computer is making sounds. I just, whatever reason, the Zoom is not working.
Okay. All right. Well, Darius, we'll try it again another time. All right, buddy.
Okay, cool.
Bye-bye. Okay, I don't know if this is the first time I've run into this where speakers didn't work, but
Indeed.
anyway, everyone have a great weekend. Okay, markets are back. I guess we're not going to be able to just relax for the holidays and be on our toes, but you know what, I'll tell you, I'm trading micros and minis right now in December. I don't go back to full size until New Year's. Just something you may want to consider too. And I was very grateful that because I'm still in a lot of these trades, I had very reduced leverage. So everyone have a great weekend and persevere through adversity. And to be there for the good times, you have to be there all the time. So don't go fetal if you had a rough week. It's part of driving a taxi cab. You get tickets. And most of all, don't just count your pips. Don't just lick your wounds. Count your blessings and be one to your neighbor, to your friend, to your family, to a stranger. And we'll see everyone Monday. Have a great weekend. Steve, have a great weekend.
You too, Coach.
I'll see all you Warriors on Monday. Last full week before Christmas. Adios. You're welcome, Brock. You're welcome, Sinatra. See ya.